I'm going to tell you, my view on addiction is that it's probably 90% of people, 90% of addiction addicts, I believe, are suffering with mental health issues. I believe that those issues are not being, taken care of because of the system that we have. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying, for me, I was definitely self-medicating. I actually needed psychiatric help. I actually needed to be on certain medications, but the system is so broken that it was much easier for me to self-medicate, regardless of the things that I encountered and did to myself and the dangers I put myself in. The alternative was feeling. And I know that sounds crazy, that you would be so afraid of emotion, but I was terrified of emotion. I didn't want to feel. And really the biggest emotion was the loss of my children. Yeah. It was something I could not accept. Yeah. And I didn't know how to live my life sober in that. I didn't know how to navigate. Yeah. And you got to remember, I wasn't in a relationship with God. I hated God. I really hated God. Yeah. And I blamed him for everything. And I mean, that's not something I'm proud to say, but it is the truth. I blamed him for every situation that I was in. I did.
So do you feel like when you were in like those arenas that you knew God and that he was present, but
yeah, I thought he hated me.
Yeah.
People used to come into my house. I had a crack house, because I still continued to do crack for years with my heroin addiction, and it just went hand in hand perfectly, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, it did. I thought it did. And because you're always trying to find that balance. You don't want to be too up, you don't want to be too down, you kind of want to be in the middle of the road. So you're just like a mad scientist trying to figure it out all the time, and you don't realize how much you're doing. I mean, I'll tell you in a minute, but there used to be people that would come into my house smoking crack with me and then start talking about God. I used to kick those people out of my house so fast. I was like, get out of my, I mean, I was much ruder than that, but I would be like, how dare you come into my house smoking my crack and talking to me about God? Like, hit the road and don't ever come back. I don't want to hear it. But one of those times playing mad scientist, I OD'd and died. I died. And Mitch took me. This is what I found out later. He took my dead body, dragged it into the bathroom, put me in the bathtub, ran the shower, and closed the door, and went back to doing his thing, getting high, doing his mad scientist thing, and left me dead in the shower alone. And my friend, the girl that I actually was in a relationship with, lived upstairs from us at this point. She came down and was looking for me. And apparently he said, you don't want to know where she is. Like, you don't want to see this. And she was like, where is she? And so she discovered that I was in the bathroom. She dragged me out. I was completely blue and gone. And she was saying to call the police. And I had a warrant for my arrest. And he said, I can't call the police. She has a warrant for her arrest, and this house is full of drugs. Like, they'll take us all. And she was like, I don't care. She's dead. So anyhow, they ended up reviving me after many shots of Narcan and whatever else they did to me. And I woke up in the hospital, and there was a nurse standing over my bed, and I opened my eyes, and she was crying. And I was like, why are you crying? I don't even know you. And she was like, do you realize where you've been? And I was like, yeah, I had a near-death experience when I died. Wow. I did. And it wasn't good. I didn't go to heaven. Yeah. I don't really share this much because I know a lot of people think, whatever they think about it, it's not real. It doesn't really happen. It happened to me. And I did. I went into complete black darkness. I could hear other people wailing and screaming in agony. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I was dead. And that's when it was the first time ever that I was aware that I couldn't feel the presence of God. No matter what in my life, I always knew that he was there, even if he wasn't there for me. I knew he was there. And in that moment, there was no presence of God. It was just complete hopelessness. And it was awful. And I started to pray. In my near-death experience, I started praying and I said, not like this, God, please, not like this. Like, I need another chance. I need another shot. And he was merciful. He pulled me out of it, and I came back, and I went through this black tunnel, and all these things were kicking me and punching me and calling me these awful names, and even hell didn't want me, apparently, is what they were saying to me. And I would love to say that that changed my life at that time. I would love to say that I pulled myself together and I had an awakening. I didn't. I was scared. I was horrified. I was petrified. And every time I used after that, because up to that point, I always used like in secrecy. I didn't let people watch me shoot up. I was really embarrassed about it. After that, I never did it alone again. I always made people watch me. It was so crazy. Yeah. But I think it actually forced me deeper into addiction instead of pulling me out of it, because I was so scared. Instead of being like, this is where you're going to go, it was like, well, this is where I'm going, so I better just get the most of this. It was so crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think that things work out the way that they're supposed to work out, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, now I know that. But I'm saying, like, you know, when you hear something like that, I'm sure everyone would think, oh, that's the moment.
That's the moment she had.
But no, it wasn't. I left the hospital. I checked out MIA and or whatever, against medical advice, AMA, and I got high immediately. I was pissed that they gave me Narcan and that I wasted all that fentanyl. That's what I was mad about. I was so mad.
Because
I was like,
I
great.
don't know. Does it like reverse the effects or something?
Oh yeah, it completely knocks it out of you completely, and then you're dope, and then you're dope sick. So I was pissed. I just used like $100 worth of fentanyl. I'm like, hello,
Yeah.
crazy. There's no logic there. It's absolute insanity. You know?
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately that's why we're doing what we're doing, because it does sound insane to me. It sounds like, I'm like, well, why couldn't you just stop? You know, like what kind of life? Okay, this is like, when I think about it, I'm like, how could a life living in a crack house with a bunch of people coming in and out, doing crack, doing heroin, doing whatever, having to hustle that hard, that seems like so much work to me.
And it is. It's a full-time job.
It
And let me
sounds like
tell you,
3 full-time jobs, homegirl.
yeah.
That sounds so much harder to do that than to
And
go to my job every day.
it is. And it's much more dangerous. I was constantly in peril. I mean, if I thought that I was safe, I mean, I guess I thought that, but I mean, really, I was living a very dangerous life. So dangerous. I lived right in the heart of, like, you know, just crack central. There was prostitution everywhere. There were drug dealers everywhere. I mean, I had it all going on in my life, and I was right in the middle of it. And I was what I thought, and I was so proud of myself. I was so proud of myself. I could walk into the scariest houses and not flinch. I could walk into the darkest of alleys, and nope, I didn't care. I didn't care. I thought that I was just all that. But I mean, mind you, at that point now, I mean, I'm looking like I'm 80 pounds. I'm, you know, losing my teeth. I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I look absolutely insane, but I think I'm like a supermodel or something. I have no correct perception of what I really look like. And only in that mugshot do I really see how bad things had gotten. But I mean, it was a real crazy existence, bouncing around, living in hotels, shady hotels, you know, just totally exposed to the most insane, vile situations. And I mean vile. I mean, I'm talking perversion like you wouldn't believe, just,
Well,
and there
some of the
wasn't.
stuff that you have told me that you did in addiction, and I don't know if we're going to go there or not, but the things that you have told me are insane. I mean, some of the things that you had to do to look like normal, like you had to go to the extents, like, see, those are the things that I'm like, that's a lot of work. you know I
It
mean,
was a lot of work. And I wonder, I would love to, I wish I had like a hidden camera on me all those years to see like what people's reactions really were, because I just am so curious, like what did people see when they looked at me? Because no one ever tried to help me out of it. No one ever said, you need help.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I never had anyone like treating me like that. They treated me like I was normal. I'll tell you, one of the things and a lot of it, to be honest, wasn't necessarily my actions or my doing that horrified me. A lot of times it was just these glimpses. Every now and again, I would get like a reality glimpse. I could see things clearly in these moments. So we were sitting in the bathroom and she was on the floor and I was sitting on the toilet and we were talking and we had the door closed because like a lot of the times you just didn't want to be around the men because they were just so gross. And she started crying. And I was like, what's wrong? And she was like, I don't know how to say it, but I'll say vagina. She was like, my vagina is so sore and it smells so bad. I need a shower. And in that moment, that's a moment that I can recall very clearly. It was a moment that kind of like, it was like that yet thing. It just zoomed in and I was like, and I didn't know how to like help her. I didn't know how to make her feel better about that because she was going to take a shower and go right back.
Right.
And I knew that.
Yeah.
And I also knew that I needed something from her.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was so freaking messed up. It was so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so ashamed that I didn't ever have the ability to care beyond my own addiction.
You weren't there.
And instead of seeing someone as a human, I see them as someone that's going to give me more crack or more heroin. That's what I saw. But that was a very clear moment. There were many moments like that where I can say that yet thing would pop into my head and I would be like, and the reality was just so horrifying. It was so horrifying so many times.
Do you think that those were like the turning point moments? Like you could have because I mean, ultimately you had that turning point moment, where you had a moment where you were like, okay, what's done is done. But do you think like that's why that they're so clear to you, that it was like they were that you should have, like you could have, it would have been pivotal? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, what it was is that I realized in those moments that I had crossed so many severe lines.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized in those moments, I realized like, this is so wrong. But it would only be a moment. It wasn't like it stayed.
Right.
It would just be a moment where I would have this desire to do the right thing. What I wanted to do was pick her up and hold her and just help her and tell her that she had value beyond her vagina that was being abused and beaten. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't, because I knew her using her vagina was going to provide something for me. Yeah. And I'm not happy. That's so horrifying, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Well, that's the importance of it, right?
Yeah, it was so truth. Bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was that for other people too. Yeah. It's not to say, yeah, that I didn't reciprocate. I did. I mean, I used to get people high all the time, right. All the time.
Yeah.
It was always a give and take.
And I'm sure that there's moments that that you're incorporated in moments of theirs,
I don't even know. I'll tell you the truth. I can't remember one person's name, face. I could go into a room full of people I got high with and I wouldn't even remember them.
Might be a good thing.
I mean, it's so sad. It's all just such a
Would you really want to reach out to those people?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's how
You were
single-minded focus I was. I didn't even forge relationships. These are people I got high with every single day, did the worst of the worst with, and I can't even tell you their name.
Yeah, that is kind of bizarre.
That's like a little crazy. They didn't matter to me.
They didn't.
They didn't.
They were another means to get high.
And I didn't matter to them, I'm sure.
No.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Why?
Because I know it's draining. It's draining to hear it. It's draining to say it. I know it's a lot. And that's nothing. I really didn't share much of anything.
It's not draining. Here's where like I'm just like, because it's like, I just wish I could go and wring your neck, from those moments. And
I wish somebody would have.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you feel like even if you could go back, you would do the same thing. And it's just like, but it is what it is. Everybody has their journey, and this was your journey, and your journey is going to help somebody realize that they're not alone. Either that they are in a place where they can start talking about their addictions to help them recover, or it's going to reach somebody that's in addiction. It's like, oh my gosh.
I think the most important thing that I could say right now that I really want people in addiction to hear, or people that are just coming out of addiction, one of the biggest hurdles I had was imagining myself without drugs. It was, and I know that sounds small, but I could not imagine laughing, crying, living, enjoying life, being happy. I couldn't imagine any of that without a drug. And it was so deep rooted that, it took me, I was in prison for 18 months. I was in prison 6 months up to the point where I finally realized that I probably had a problem. Before, I'm not kidding. Before that, I literally thought that I was like, fine. I didn't think it was that bad. And I know that
you were living the life you wanted instead of living the life that you had to have.
I don't know exactly, but I know that I didn't think I had a drug problem. Wow. Now, this is after, losing everything. Everything, including my freedom. This is after going through nightmare after nightmare. There was never, every day involved getting raped, getting abused, getting ripped off, committing crimes. Every day was crazy at that point. And I still didn't think I had a problem. And when I went into prison and then I got extradited 3,000 miles away back home to where I committed my crime, I was sitting in there for 6 months before I had every intention of getting out of that place and going right back to it. I would sit in that jail and I would just fantasize all day long. All I did was replay in my mind, getting high. It tortured me. It was haunting me. It was horrifying. I'll tell you what, crack, heroin, and any other drug you're addicted to, it's a demon. It's a person. It is not a drug. It is a person of some sort. Yeah. Because this thing would haunt me like you wouldn't believe. And it was horrible and it was just horrific. And it took me a long time. And thankfully in prison, which is another miracle, I was in prison for a gun charge. And when you have a high sensitive crime like that, you don't get much privilege. They had a recovery program in prison, and only people that were on minimum security could go into this program. I was on maximum. And the warden walked by the warden. She was a female. She walked by. You're not supposed to just talk to the warden. You're supposed to, I mean, if you even can talk to the warden, you'd have to have an appointment and follow protocol. I jumped out of my cell and I went right up to her and I told her as quickly as I could that I needed that program. I knew I needed that program. And she was like, what are you in for? Oh, how long? Oh, yeah, that's not going to happen. 2 days later, they called my name and they sent me over to minimum and they entered me into the program.
Wow.
And I know it took me a long time to get there, sorry, but it's such a significant moment. It was such a significant moment.
That is a significant moment, and it gives me goosebumps.
It was.
Because I
It
think
really was.
It was like some divine intervention, you know.
God was definitely moving on my behalf well before I even acknowledged him. Yeah.
And it may have just been for you to cry out for help. You know, I mean, it's biblical that it says that we just need to cry out for help.
I mean, can I tell you the truth? My motive wasn't the program. My motive was to have privileges that I couldn't have. They had a soda machine. They had rec time outside. They had all these things that I wanted. It was another manipulation. It was, but it was still, it was.
But it was saving grace.
But it was used to change everything in my life. And it did. That was the foundation that led me. I left prison. When I got paroled out, I had the option. I could have went back into the streets completely on my own. I could have gone into a program. I could have gone to my mother's house. I had all these options. My mother wanted me home so bad with her. And I knew if I go home with my mother, I'm going to get high again. Yeah. If I go into the streets, I'm dead. People want me dead. I mean, I had hits on me. I had somebody shooting at my mom's house trying to kill me because of that gun that I did.
Yeah.
And then I went into a program. I went into an 8-month program after being in prison all that time. I did another program.
For 8 months.
8 months. Yeah.
Okay, we got to go back because I want to know, I don't even know how far to go back because, well, first of all, let's, so I can cut. I need pauses in like before and after. I want to cut some stuff because I want to ask you, are we going to talk about you getting pregnant again?
Yeah, I mean, we have to. Of course. Yeah. That's before prison. Yeah.
Right. I know
I jumped ahead and you can push that back.
Yeah, I know that we jumped ahead and I don't even care if it's chronological. I mean, but I didn't want to like say like.
No, I think that's very important.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to ask you something.